we're ready to come to order. So with that, calling the April 16th, 2025 meeting of the HRA Board of Commissioners for Brainerd to order. And with that, we have the roll call has gone around. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda from the board meeting dated April 16th, 2025.
Motion to adjourn, Erickson?
Okay, and second?
That works.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We're looking now at item 4A, approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting on March 26, 2025.
Motion to approve, Yeager.
Yeager, is there a second?
I'll second that for Coda.
All right, thank you, Verkota. And now, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Those minutes are approved. We're on to unfinished business 5A. There is none. We're on to new business. Item 6A, request for approval to respond to the RFP for Bring It Home State Voucher Program. Eric, could you?
Yes, I will at least start us off, Mr. Chair. Thank you. We are finally at the time where we need to make that decision or not do this. And so, as we have heard for the last couple of years, Bring It Home State Rental Assistance and the RFP was finally released in February, and the responses for the interested agencies across the state are due to Minnesota Housing no later than noon on Monday the 21st. The online RFP includes a budget workbook with a brief narrative clarifying budget selections and explaining startup costs, procedures, or requests, and a required pre-award risk assessment, and a tool for reporting on which administrative plan procedures will be different than what is currently in use by the HCV program that we currently run. Staff would need to make this program work for at least a 2-year grant term. That's what the initial grant term is. The budget is above what we received from the agency. The budget that is attached from the agency is what we should request, what we believe is needed to successfully implement the program in our service area. Staff does believe that we should participate and respond to this RFP as we implement, or as we know where there is a need for additional rental assistance within our county, and we are certainly best positioned in the county to implement the program. This does call for hiring a full-time equivalent, one full-time equivalent staff member, which we would proceed with if and when we would receive the grant. If we are selected and approved, those next steps would be to work with Minnesota Housing on our project plan prior to having them draft a grant agreement. The board would have the opportunity to review that grant agreement prior to the execution of the grant, and we anticipate that that will be sometime in the fall of this year. Staff are recommending submitting the RFP as follows for 49 rental assistance vouchers, just over close to $95,000 in startup costs. The two numbers below that, the $372,565 and the $69,672, are actually per year fees, so that can be doubled. Would actually be $745,130 in rental assistance for that 2-year term, and about $140,000, just shy of that, for admin fees. We are talking a significant amount of rental assistance and housing assistance payments that would be coming into this county in that 2-year period. We do then have attached kind of our key differences between the current HCV administrative plan and the proposed Bring It Home work plan. Some of the highlights there are as extending time for a housing search. Right now, our housing choice voucher has, I think it's a 90-day period, and then it can be extended for search. We're proposing we extend that out a little bit longer. We've got some alternatives to the HQS and Inspire inspection standards that HUD requires. We're actually, I think, lessening those restrictions as an option. Project-based rental assistance without limits per property, project-based rental assistance without environmental reviews, allowing households to rent units above 120% of our payment standard or pay up to 50% of income towards rent, allowing shorter-term leases, allowing a lease-in-place preference for a category, and allowing a preference category for households losing ongoing rental assistance or subsidy from another state and federal funding source. These are all items that are kind of outside of the norm from what our current HCV plan is. We're lessening the restrictions on those items to hopefully catch a wider net of individuals that do need rental assistance that are kind of getting pushed out from our current standards. Attached on the next page, you will see the budget and how that is laid out. Or actually, sorry, this is the standards, and then the last page is the budget. You can see where that top section is really all of our startup costs and what we're anticipating. I can certainly have Karen dig into that if you want some more details on that, but we are looking at hopefully funding up to 9 months of an FTE for that first year. Again, with the intent that we'll get admin fees coming back in for this program for years 1 and 2, and with those dollars, we're hoping to get and projecting to get payment for that FTE through year 2 with that. We've got the projected rental assistance as well on there, and if we keep scrolling down, you'll kind of see on the second page of that budget kind of how it all shakes out. Again, from a staff perspective, this is something that we do feel is needed because we know that there is rental assistance that is very much needed throughout the county that we can provide. These are dollars that are now built into the base budget for Minnesota Housing. Again, that could change, but this is a 2-year at least period that we know we would have funding for that and pretty substantial funding. We are requesting above what Minnesota Housing has stated in their kind of initial grant discussion that we would receive, but as we're doing the math and trying to give them a realistic budget of what it's going to cost for us, Minnesota Housing has told agencies that you should request what you need, and if you don't ask for more than what you've already been budgeted for from them, you won't get it. So this budget does outlay above and beyond what Minnesota Housing has already cash outlaid for us, and we are optimistic that there will be funding available for that since they have been collecting these dollars for the better part of 1.5 years. I guess I would open it up to my staff if they've got anything to add. If not, then open it up for discussion from the board.
Any staff feedback? That covered it.
I doubt that.
All right, well, questions or comments from the board? Jaeger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have just a couple questions. So I understand that we'd be bringing on another full-time employee for this. It's a 2-year program, basically,
That is
right?
correct. Yep.
So 2 questions. What do we feel like the ancillary burden will be if this to our own staff beyond the new employee? Do we have kind of a sense of added burden to the existing staff that we have? That's my first question. My second question is, okay, after the 2 years is over, will we have a method to, if we don't get funding, to then get rid of an employee that we took on? So
Right.
those are my 2 concerns here.
Yep, and good questions, Commissioner Yeager. Number one, to kind of talk about the amount of staff time that we're estimating. If you do bring up the first page of that budget, Hannah, you'll see in the initial staffing, we kind of outlay for about $14,000 worth of staff time. That's that second budget item for onboarding, orientation, and training. That is current staff that's going to be helping that new staff member get up. And so that's, we're estimating at about 10 hours per week for about 26 weeks.
Okay,
So-
but
and
beyond that, I understood that, but I meant like beyond that, once it's in place,
Right, so there'll be, the same amount of admin, burden from the standpoint of you're getting HAP payments out. We're hoping that individual that's coming on board will be able to handle the majority of that, but there will be financing, tasks that need to be made, and certainly supervisory kind of oversight. And I don't have a huge sense of that there's going to be an overburden on staff time, but that's before we get into it.
Understood.
So there's always those devils in the detail. Second part of that question, remind me again, that was the...
It won't be lightening the load of our staff, right? We can all agree on that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then that second part was really the cash outlays for 2 years. Do we think that if we don't get refunded in 2 years, if Minnesota Housing says we can't fund this anymore, at that point we would be not able to self-sustain that position.
Right.
At that point, I would be looking to cut back. Unless we find another revenue source that can fully fund an FTE. The idea is, we're going to find a way to shore up probably about a third of that FTE with additional revenue that we're going to need to find starting in year 3.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Vercoda.
Kind of to tag along with that further, So we get these vouchers out for 2 years. Do they go away after 2 years? You know what I'm saying? The way it's looking now, things are cutting back, and we're
So crystal ball, what I can tell you is that, and what we've heard from Minnesota housing staff, is that once it is built into the base budget, it's very difficult to pull out of base budget.
Gotcha.
Will that ever not happen? Can't make that promise, and that's what a lot of our PHAs around the state are sitting here kind of biding our time saying, is this going to be a 2-year stint? And then we've done a lot of work for a 2-year program that just didn't work. I can tell you that the current governor's office is very interested in making this be a very viable, ongoing program, and that is as good as you can get with elections that happen every 4 years for the governor's office. Gut tells me that it's kind of built in there. They've got a lot of cash that's already tied up in taxpayer dollars from the last year and a half and going into 2 years before we actually get a dollar out. So they're going to want to, or they should be able to have funding at least year 3. And then if you can get through that biennium 3-4, you've got more of a viable long term.
Yeah,
Still
I
a crystal ball.
just hate to get people in something and then have to be like, well, on you now.
Absolutely, and we would hate to see that housing assistance go away. I guess the only, kind of offshoot of that is they're not giving us the matching amount of federal grant or federal vouchers that we have. It's limited to 40 to 49, but that is still unacceptable to lose those vouchers. I think we would have a pretty large contingent of housing professionals lobbying that they should not be removing that rental assistance, maybe incrementally decreasing that if it did have to come to that.
Yep.
So I don't think it's a complete goodbye after 2 years, but if it doesn't pan out as well or as successfully, you could certainly see some decreasing in that.
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Erickson.
I'm asking about, we're just applying. We don't know if we're going to get this. This is just an application for this grant.
That is correct, but I would be very surprised if we did not get it.
Even
Again,
with the inflated,
I think that Minnesota Housing has said if you are a PHA currently administering a housing choice voucher program and you apply for this, you will get approved. Now, it all comes down to the details and what we can work out with the grant agreement with Minnesota Housing. That is where we're going to gain a lot more information on how Minnesota Housing is going to be moving forward with the program. I don't foresee them having too many barriers to this because, again, the message from St. Paul is that they want this program to be successful, and what that looks like is what they are saying. We're going to pull back a lot of the restrictions that you currently have with your voucher program. We're going to give you much more freedom to do these things. Whether or not that proves to be successful in getting vouchers and getting vouchers leased up, that's what we're going to find out in our communities. But I mean, you look at the Twin Cities Metro Area HRA, St. Paul HRA, they're getting in the thousands. I think Metro gets a little over 1,000 vouchers. So again, very difficult to pull that back from the Metro. So I would think that, again, statewide, they're going to have a difficult time pulling back. And then again, just to answer your question, if we apply, we will get approved. We might only get approved for what they've already told us they were going to earmark for us.
yeah. So, one more question. The proposed budget, startup costs, that whole subline there for $94,640, we would get that every year then?
No, that would be the startup costs that we get for year 1. And again, that includes about 9 months of an FTE that we would be hiring. It's all reimbursable, so if we don't spend the $94,640 and we get approved for it, then we don't get those dollars. So it behooves us to make sure that we've got a pretty good budget build in year 1 for our startup to include everything that we are going to need.
But how are we gonna?
Those go away. The way we get paid is through the admin fees. And so on page 2 of the budget, you'll see our max admin fee. Oh, can you keep going down? max admin fee there representing 49 vouchers that are either leased up or at least administered or out there on the street, 69,672. Again, that represents approximately 2/3 of an FTE for this kind of range that we're looking, but those are dollars that we would get on an ongoing basis to
Okay.
administer the program.
So then we would have salary for this person next year then?
We believe the way that we're building this out is to have salary for year 1 and year 2 completely covered. And then we will be, as a staff, looking at other revenue opportunities. And I think Karen's got something to add as well.
I was just going to add that also with the startup costs, right now it's structured that if we are funded and we execute a contract, then in theory, the state will advance 50% of our startup costs to us to start, trying to hire an FTE, get someone on board, cover our costs before we're actually up and running. And then another difference with this grant versus our federal grant is that they'll pay us admin on issued vouchers, not leased vouchers. So in theory, as we're compiling a waiting list, and then off of that waiting list, we're notifying, and then off of the notifications we're issuing, then the state will start funding admin on those issued vouchers, where the federal program, they actually have to be leased up. So we should receive admin sooner.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that is a good point, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you for bringing that up here.
Other questions?
Are we ready for a motion to continue?
Yeah, hearing none, I would be looking for a motion to authorize staff to respond to the RFP for the Bring It Home State Rental Assistance Program.
I'll make that motion, Erickson, that we proceed.
Is there a second?
Decker, second.
Thank you. Mr. Erickson, I believe I cut you off on your motion. Is that your motion complete?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
To allow staff to apply for the grant, and this is exciting, very exciting.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And I'm struggling on an atomic fireball right now that I'm in my mouth, so I apologize if I'm mumbling. It's hot. So with that, we're moving on to
Kids now.
item 6B, review a proposed update to the procurement policy. And that would be John?
Yes, thank you, Chair Deval, members of the board. That memo is on page 13 or up on the screen. So staff is looking at trying to streamline some of our procurement procedures. This would be for small construction or maintenance-related issues. Say we'd have an employee get sick, we'd have to bring in an outside contractor to handle the day-to-day maintenance needs. Or if we find a window needs to be replaced, there's a lot of front-end work that goes into procuring those services. So the goal is to get all of that taken care of so that when we do identify a project, we can just get prices for it and move forward. But in doing so, we noticed that our procurement policy strictly prohibited allowing us to do that. So we're asking the board to amend the procurement policy by adding the word typically, and that would be on page 23 of the packet under section 5.4.6. So the last sentence in that paragraph there, you can see it's highlighted on the screen, would just say QBS procedures typically shall not be used to purchase other types of services. And by adding that word in there, that would allow us to use this process to go ahead and procure construction and maintenance related services. So any questions?
Questions of staff? Yes, Mr.
I
Mr.
may have missed it, but does this apply to projects under a certain monetary value? Or is
Yes.
this just carte blanche to?
No, it's under 175,000. That's a small acquisition threshold.
Okay, got it, yep. That's all.
Other questions?
Should have been done a long time ago.
Well, with that, I'm looking for a motion. I'm struggling for the page.
I'll get it. I got it. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-03.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that one, Verkota.
And Verkota. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll, please.
Yes. Decker,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Verkota,
Yes.
Jaeger.
Yep.
And Duval.
Yes, so that resolution passes. We are now on to Bills and Communications Financial Report. Karen?
All right, my memo's on the screen. Did want to let the board know that we will have Mary Reedy from Clifton Larson Allen at our May meeting to go through the audit review with the board. I didn't have anything else, I guess, to highlight as far as payments, just as a reminder to the board. Every third year, we are scored. We say it's our FOS scoring or our REACT scoring on public housing. Since we are a high performer, we're only actually scored every third year, so 2025 will be our scoring year. So when we're looking through the next page of the packet, Hannah, when we are going through our ratios each month, again, this is only for public housing because that's how HUD scores us. But in theory, if HUD were to come in, we're giving you a snapshot or a glimpse of what our score would be each month, and then we actually will be scored for the entire year. So that is a way just for the board to, the scores really don't variate. The accounts receivable, you'll see typically we don't have max points for that, and that's why we come to the board at the end of the year to write off our outstanding balances so that we can be, receive our maximum score for that ratio. Our occupancy sometimes will fluctuate, but typically it stays pretty consistent throughout the year, but you can keep an eye on that as well, because this scoring this year, really does matter. And then, as like I said, if you're a high performer, HUD only comes in and scores you every third year. If you're a standard performer, they inspect us and score us every 2. And then if you were troubled or substandard, it would be annually.
Thank you. Mr. Erickson?
How many years have we been a high performer?
I remember there was one year we lost points for occupancy and we appealed it and it was denied. I think that year caused us to be standard, but otherwise, I think we've been high performer pretty consistently.
And that's kudos to the staff, not to this board.
For sure.
Good job. Wow, that's phenomenal. Isn't that great?
Lots of hard work year in and year out with
Yeah.
finance staff, with housing staff, with everybody within the agency. That goes for maintenance, housekeeping. Like they hit all of that to get our high marks. So it is a team effort.
Other questions of staff? Hearing none, be looking for a motion to approve the payments as presented in the packet.
So move, Jaeger.
Is there a second?
Erickson, second?
All right, any discussion?
I do have one discussion item.
Yes.
So, like, every year, the representative from Clifton, Larson Allen, where does she come from, the Metro? Or somewhere around here, St.
She's
Cloud?
actually the St. Cloud office.
Okay, and like every year, there's no findings, and is it incumbent that they have to come up and make a presentation to us to every year tell us there was a perfectly clean audit? And I'm just looking to save time, that's all, but.
I guess if the board didn't want the exit meeting, you could request to not have it. Otherwise, it's standard procedure as part of the audit that she comes and does a exit meeting with each of our boards.
I mean, if there was findings, I would say that's one thing, but I don't know. I was just throwing it out there, so.
I think it's part of the
Not that it
fees
is
that
a
we
riveting report, but.
probably built into the fees that we get charged for the
Oh,
audit.
okay, well, then we're definitely getting the report.
Correct.
She's up here, yeah, for sure.
I was concerned to stay.
End of discussion.
Any other discussion items? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Thank you. We're going to HCV report. Shannon?
Yes. My memo is attachment 5 on page 61. So starting out, so through the first quarter of the year, 25%. Our unit months leased was 24.9, could not be more perfect. That is exactly where we need to be right at this time. Spending is a little high. It's 27.94. We are keeping an eye on that. Our HUD rep is also keeping an eye on that, just making sure that as we're projecting all of our lease ups, that we're not running into a shortfall situation. So we want to make sure that our unit months leased stays high and that our spending doesn't get too out of whack so that we can make it through to the end of the year. In this last month, we just issued 2 new vouchers. The staff were very busy with annuals and interim recertifications. And there is a blank. There should be 14 inspections there. I'm so sorry. And then just 2 terminations. Bridges has 11 current participants leased up, spanning 9 in Crow Wing, 1 in Aiken, and 1 in Cass. Total HAP request out of Bridges was just over $8,000. Family self-sufficiency, 57 current participants, 30 of those that are actually escrowing, which is great. Amount of escrow, just about $12,500 a month there. Total combined escrow, $272,000, which is wonderful as well. Nothing really jumped out as unusual when I was looking at the stats for this past month. Incomes are down and HAP is up. That is on page 62 near the bottom. We've been tracking that for a few months, just kind of how those trends are going. This will be the second month in a row that the incomes have been down and HAP has been up. Not a whole lot, but just something to kind of keep an eye on. If anyone has any other questions about anything for HCV, happy to answer questions.
Questions of staff? Yes, Ms. Verkluta.
Well, since you brought up income, is that do you think it's like a seasonal thing? Is it just like an anomaly? I don't know if you've tracked it year to year kind of too through the seasons or.
You know, I haven't. And it's not up or down a whole lot.
Okay.
It's not like we're seeing, thousands of dollars.
Gotcha.
I think we're seeing I wish I had my old packet here. We're seeing less than $50, I believe, in our HAP variance. It could be seasonal.
Yeah.
It's a very good question that maybe we can keep an eye on that for any trends that are coming
Oh,
up.
good. I was just curious since you brought it up.
Good question.
Others? Mr. Yeager?
Nope, nothing.
Otherwise, thank you very much for that report, and we're moving on to item 7C, which is the Housing Management Report. Shannon, please.
And that's attachment 6 on page 63. So actually, if we flip to the stats page on page 65, just want to build on what Karen was talking about for our scoring year. There we go, yep. So the physical occupancy, the percent occupied, the far right side of that table, we did have 1 vacancy at the end of the month, and so you can see what even 1 vacancy does to an occupancy rate. They do lump them together, so that is helpful. Kathy, again, I've said it previously, so she takes these vacancies very seriously. So she is always watching. We were able to fill that unit that was coming from another assisted unit, so we could not move them in prior to the 1st. HUD has some fun rules like that, so unfortunately, it's their fault we took an occupancy hit, but that unit is now filled. Everything else is looking pretty good. Waiting list is looking very healthy. The 1 vacant unit was filled. There weren't any notifications and screenings in the past month. I did double check that number. All of them happened in the month previous. I don't know if you remember, last month the stats were very high. Kathy had gone through a number of people on our waiting list before she was able to get some of these people moved in. Work orders, the guys are definitely hustling. Nothing else really jumped out. Going back to the memo page, Patsy, our Ross Service Coordinator, is currently on maternity leave, so we've been struggling along without her. Hannah actually helped do an event with our North Star residents. We hosted Crow Wing County Public Health. They sent one of their workers over to help people do the age-friendly survey. And I want to say we had probably around 11 people that attended. Probably more people took the survey on their own afterward, but it was just nice to have a hosted event and people could ask public health questions about the survey. I think their goal is 500 surveys, and I think right now they're getting close to 300. So everybody take the survey. If anyone has any specific questions on anything else in my memo? please let me
Questions
know.
of staff? Shannon, you may have mentioned it, and I might have missed it. 12 30-day lease terminations, it seems high.
Most of those were related to non-payment, not behavior. So most of those will correct.
Yep. All righty. Any other questions of staff? Thank you. We're moving on to the rehab programs report. John?
Thank you, Chair Duval, members of the board. That memo is on your screen, or page 69 if you are following along. The Small Cities Development Program Streetscape application did make it down to deed yesterday at 9:44 a.m. So that is in their hands. We did receive confirmation of that. That is to help with the lighting of the reconstruction of Highway 210 through town from Baxter Drive on the west end over into Pine Shores Road on the east. So we did request the maximum amount available, a total of $600,000, $20,000 of which would be for admin, and $580,000 would actually go for work. So, and the current projects we have down below, as you can see, continue to have a healthy balance of rehab loans. We did actually close one of these out yesterday, so we are down one on there. We have a couple that are close to closing. We have one project right in North Brainerd that we're just waiting on weather sufficient to finish up some painting and just some final odds and ends. So you'll start to see some of those numbers wrapped up. So, any questions for me on any of those items?
Questions of staff?
Thank
John,
you.
thank you very much. We are on to the executive director report. Eric?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple updates, one that's on your memo and then a couple since the memo went out. Greater Minnesota Infrastructure Grant Program. The RFP was finally released on April 7th and has a due date of June 12th. Staff internally at the HRA will be working on this grant request and response in conjunction with hopefully the city of Brainerd to secure funding for roadway infrastructure to support the Outlot E&F housing project. The board has pledged up to $100,000 for that infrastructure. The funds that Brainerd HRA has pledged, along with the conveyance of the physical property, will be used as match dollars invested in the project, as well as the funding from the Crow Wing County HRA that they have pledged. After a preliminary review of the scoring and the application, it does appear that this project in Brainerd would have a good opportunity to score well. So we are hopeful for that to translate into some funding for this project. I will be bringing this to the City Council, looks like probably May 19th, to get approval for them to apply on behalf of the city or in conjunction with the city. Those funds would go then to the city, who would then work with Level Contracting on getting that roadway and infrastructure completed. We've been waiting on this one to open up. They had said that it was going to open up first quarter. They just missed it by 7 days. So I know it is grant season with Minnesota Housing, so they are getting a lot of RFPs out, getting a lot of RFPs back. So I believe after this closes in June, they are looking for sometime a late 2025 funding for this, which might not line up exactly with what Monty is looking for, but we'll see and try to get some funds for him. So more to come on that. I know it's a kind of a joint venture between us and the Crow Wing County HRA at this point, but we do have some cash invested in this as match dollars, so it is relevant for us. A couple other updates. We talked about HUD reps. Our current HUD rep just went to the St. Cloud HRA due to, I'm guessing, some uncertainty with HUD funding and the amount of staffing that HUD is currently going to have to cut. We've heard anywhere up to 50% of the HUD staffing across the nation will be more or less eliminated from their positions. So wouldn't be shocked. We've got quite a few retirements that it sounds like from our field office in Minneapolis, St. Paul. There'll be some shuffling, I would assume, from our field reps. It doesn't outwardly affect us on a day-to-day, but I'm sad to see this current HUD rep leave because they were actually very attentive to what we needed, and we're doing a really good job in working with us. So some more, we just won't probably get as timely of responses from field office or even from the headquarters in DC, but just something that we're going to have to continue to work with and understand that there'll be some delays on that. Took my single-family home funding or financing course last week, 5 days last week from noon to 4 every day. Happy to report that I passed my exam, so that's good. That means I can go on to the next one. Good information, doing a lot of by hand cash flow modeling. So good to get back into that. It's been a number of years since I've had to do that. It did come back to me, so that was great. And now the next class I think is on multifamily financing and putting together deals for that. Very, very relevant to what we're trying to do here. So happy to keep doing that. I've got to get signed up for that next class. Should be later this year. And then I'd be remiss if I did not say and acknowledge that Shannon will be leaving us tomorrow, her last day with the agency. I know we announced that last month at our meeting that she would be vacating. So we are working. We currently have a job posting out on the city website, on our website, hoping to generate some interest in that and some leads on that. Wanted to, again, thank Shannon for everything she's done for our agency. She's done a lot. She's stepped up in a lot of different ways. We will miss her very much, but we certainly wish her well in her future endeavors. With that, I would take any questions that the board may have. If not, I will be done.
Questions of staff? All right, thank you for that report, Eric, and good news and sad news all mixed in there. Huh?
Try to balance it out.
Yeah, way to go. So with the HUD rep being at St. Cloud HRA, that becomes a peer you could have conversations with.
Certainly, and I did have some emailing back and forth the day before their last day and said, hey, you're going to be an asset to them, but certainly we'll hopefully run across you in the future at other NARO trainings and or just as a resource.
Well, thank you for that. And I apologize for my phone. My phone is set on vibrate, so I don't know why a ringer came through like that, but.
When it gets to that age at some point where, see,
Yeah, maybe it's a different button I'm supposed to be pushing. Oh, my. Commissioner comments. Janet, can we start with you? Ally?
I got nothing.
I just want to say to Shannon, thank you so much for the great service. Since I've been here, you've been here, and it's been fantastic. And certainly extremely crestfallen to see you go, but wish you the best and with your future endeavors. But it's been, and you always hopefully have a home here if you decide to come back. I may demand an inquiry, but anyways, wish you the best, and thank you so much for everything you've done for us. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Erickson?
Is there no way we could have kept her?
By force.
Well, we did make it number one on our priorities list right off the bat, but so I think we've tried.
There was no increase of salary, no bonuses we could have enticed her with? Oh, thank you very much. No, it's been fun to have you. You've been an asset. Thank you very much. No, I have nothing.
Shannon, echo all of that, and so I'm sure, I hope that you have enjoyed your career here with the Brainerd HRA, and that it is a high point for you as you look for higher points. So, thank you much for that.
Well crafted.
I know.
You worked on that last night, didn't you?
Let me go to my notes here. No,
Paid off.
on another subject, we just had a quick conversation before the start of the meeting about updating the Crow Wing County housing study. And I just happened to have, with the help of city staff here, got some statistics and reports out from them of how much new housing have we gotten in the city of Brainerd since the March 2020, basically, when the report was started. At that report, it said that our needs in Crow Wing County are 4,800 housing units divided up, single family, multifamily, those sorts of things.
Till 2030, though. Is that to 2030? Yeah. Oh, 2033. Okay.
Yeah, it's 15-year.
It's reasonable to assume that, the ratio of housing in the county right now would, if it would be reasonable that our share of that 4,800 would be about a third. That's about 1,600 housing units based on just the guesstimates and some wild statistics that we would need in the city of Brainerd, and that's somewhere to the tune of about 150 or 60 units a year. That's a lot of housing. And I was curious where we were at on that. You know, and the housing study was really looking at the time frame from 2018 when they did their query of needs and what we, you know, then projecting forward to 2033. So that's, you know, a large, we were already 2 years into it, that need when they published the report. But for Brainerd, if you look at building permits as being an indicator of housing starts, we had 130 housing starts from 2020 through March of this year. You know, and if we assume that all of those housing starts lead to completion, that's, there were 20 commercial units, so that's multifamily, you know, fourplexes or greater, so, you know, we have the housing units by my Neighbor to Love Coalition there in Northwest Brainerd. There's been some fourplexes and duplexes around.
Scattered sites.
Scattered sites, kinds of things. So there was about 20 units in total that we got in that 4.5-year period. We got 129 residential units, just, you know, single-family homes or duplexes. So in 4.5 years, we got 149, 150 units. So we got approximately 1 year's worth of progress on that goal. But we also lost a number of units. We lost 3 or 4 to fire. We lost about 13 to the school district's expansion of the neighborhood campuses. So, you know, you're at least keeping pace with the destruction of housing, but we're not making that kind of progress. So that's really alarming. And a couple of there are 6 recommendations that came out of this report. One is to identify opportunity sites, and that's been a priority of this HRA. And so we've been working on that. Create or enhance a down payment assistance program. We could look at that through some of the grant programs that staff have been working on, or we can look at how the trust fund has been playing into some of that. Assist with rehabbing older homes. That's that part about preserving the base of housing here so we don't have the erosion while we're trying to create new stuff. Again, I think we've been using some of our small city grants and things like that to be able to make progress in preserving the base. Amending the tax forfeited property land policy. Well, that sort of got amended by state legislature, so there's been some changes to that now maybe take opportunity away, or at least change the financial part of the transfer of tax forfeited properties. Using the housing trust fund to incentivize new construction. So that's one that I think the county HRA is sort of the keeper of that trust fund and prioritizing how those monies are allocated. And I think they have a worthy vision to invest in preserving the base. You know, again, protecting there may be not as much of an interest in new units and new construction, particularly when you think about multifamily units, you know, like the loft on Novotny or lofts on Novotny, or what's been proposed for the former Thrifty White site. But at the same time, if you're going to try and knock out 160 units a year, you know,
That's a lot.
we have that need. The housing, the multifamily category in that deficit is basically a quarter of that needs to be housing. Multifamily housing. And the last recommendation from this report is to host developers on site to build interest, and that's something that Eric's been very much engaged in as we see opportunities for properties within the city to bring developers in and say, hey, you know, and facilitate, number one, access to funding resources, help them negotiate perhaps what the pathways might be through the administrative processes and so forth for the city. So I think we're hitting a lot of those goals. I think there's opportunity, obviously, to accelerate how we're getting there, but that's going to take the investment of the private sector. It might take the investment of some of our community, like our business community, to be able to kind of lean in a bit. since they're gonna be also the consumers, if you would, of that housing when we bring new business into the economy here, whether in Crow Wing or in Brainerd. So there's still a lot of ground. If we were to invest in updating this study, we would get newer numbers. It might be discouraging.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the need is so great that updating those numbers, whether the need is greater or less, we're still far behind. And so our energy it would be to continue to make investments, perhaps through the discretionary funding of the board here, to be able to try and knock out some of these, bringing more attention to some of the resources or properties that we could develop, or developing new models of how we might be able to do housing in a way that works in the city. So just wanted to share those updates with you on this plan, and we got a lot of work to do, and I think, number one, it says that the role of the Brainerd HRA is no less essential than it always has been, and the work that staff do to kind of are knocking some of these recommendations off with the resources that we can garner. That's great stuff. So with that, that is all I have. We got our next meeting at May 28th, and so with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Dakota, is there a second?
Second, Jaeger.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. We are adjourned, friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
1:46.